Yeah. Yeah. The Eastern world, it is exploding, violence flaring and bullets loading. They old enough to kill, just not for voting. Well, you don't believe in war, well, what's that gun you're toting? And even the Jordan River has bodies floating, but you tell me over and over and over again, my friends, that you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Anyway, hello, welcome, greetings. The opening 10 minutes to a stream is always some of the most awkward as I wait for people to trickle in and find the channel and figure out that we're... I really ought to be doing these earlier in the day, but I always just run into something. Hopefully tomorrow, though. Hopefully tomorrow. I feel like I'm going to be more motivated tomorrow. I mean, ultimately, you know, we'll see, I guess, but I feel like I'm going to be pretty well motivated tomorrow. I feel like I'm going to have a pretty good day. So let's hope. Okay? Let's hope. Make sure you guys hit that like button as you roll in. Share the stream. You know what to do. And let me know if you're getting any weird warnings when you come onto the stream, too, because I'm trying to make sure that my title doesn't violate any of YouTube's weird little rules. I wish that YouTube would just put it out in plain language. Here are the words that... Dude, but of course they're not going to do that, because if they did that, then people would just start gaming the system. But the thing is, I think that there would still be plenty of people who wouldn't believe that would not game the system and still be incompetent to allow those of us who are competent to properly do it. But whatever, they're never going to come out and say, but I wish they would. I wish they would come out and tell creators, like, don't put these words in your title, or your video is probably going to get deprioritized. Because I am certain that that's a thing that happens. Nice tits. Thanks, I guess. One of those weird things you only ever hear online, folks, is what it is. Something tells me the dude that types in all caps and even writes his name in all caps and feels so lowly about himself that he has to invoke his country and his own username, something tells me that that dude is probably not an alpha male. But if you want to keep on believing about yourself, far be it from me to talk you out of that. I really don't care what you think about yourself, but I am going to tell you that this kind of alpha male, beta male shit is some like wildly misunderstood psychology of wolves kind of shit. Make sure you guys hit that like button, by the way. Every single time you hit that like button, it's another chance to send the stream out to even more people, which increases the quality of your viewing pleasure by increasing the amount of people who can engage in the chat. So hit that like button. If half of you guys hit it right now, we would have 63 likes instantly. So come on, do it. W rage bait? I mean, my existence is rage bait these days. Why wouldn't I make content? I've been trans for way longer than you've been able to monetize being trans, but as soon as I realized that, here's the thing, right? If people support you, to an extreme degree, you have to be, in my opinion, a bit more talented than I am to really, make any money off of being a representative of whatever marginalized community you're a part of, right? Now that Black people, for example, are pretty well accepted in all various different parts of society, it's not, it's no longer enough to just be a Black person who was able to access higher education at a time when that's difficult, right? That was for a long time enough to help make a Black person a celebrity in America because America found it so novel, right? But as things got better in America, the bar for admission to celebrity status became higher for that community, and it's the same way with trans people, but it varies, right? And just as it does for every marginalized community, you go through times where support for your existence is in vogue, and where support for your existence is kind of a low point, and trans people are at that low point. Now, the great thing about America is the first country on the planet which lets you monetize your controversy. So whatever, people find me offensive, people find me disagreeable, people find trans people distasteful or whatever, I'm fine with that, because I know that haters watch you more than anybody else. I should correct that. I'm not fine with it. I wish things weren't that way, but as far as me personally goes, I take advantage of transphobes. I use them like cum rags. Learn to swim? I already do. I mean, I know the basic stuff anyway. Not like a swimming master, I'm not a swimming queen, but I can float. I can paddle around a lake if I need to. The only place I ever came close to drowning was in this weird, it's called the Bone Hole. You can look it up. It's in Deloge, Missouri. But it's this weird little, I don't know, it's an offshoot of Owl Creek. And it used to be, I think, the site of some kind of lead mining operation or something like that, or maybe it was just adjacent to it. There is a ventilation tunnel that comes out as one of its portals right next to Bone Hole. So maybe, I don't know, but there's a weird current in that creek, and there is one part at which the bottom just goes all the way out of it, and it gets a lot colder, and I don't know why, but I started to drown one time just because I got too far away, and I think I just shifted my weight in a way to where I was no longer floating, and then I felt like I was going to be no longer floating, right? And then that caused me to go scream, basically, which is the worst thing you can do if you're trying to keep yourself afloat. You want your lungs to remain full of air as they can. That's why when you're floating on your back and stuff, you're supposed to, at least my understanding is that you're supposed to not let your lungs get completely empty. You're supposed to recycle out 50% of the air when you breathe, not completely let your lungs just go, But anyway. Man, this shit tastes good. This particular za right here. Yeah. All right. Tastes pretty good. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button, by the way. I don't know how we're sitting at 10 minutes and 3 motherfucking likes. You've been sitting here watching my dumb YouTube. You're a dude, and you're a moron who can't type in anything other than all caps. Why would I take your opinion seriously for a moment? Why would I let your opinion impinge on my towering ego for even a second? Do you realize how absurd you sound? Do you know what you're asking for? Way more intelligent people have tried in way more complex ways to get me to adopt their way of thinking or their way of being, and it hasn't worked for a one of them yet. Victor plus a trans woman equals this nigga. Wait, which Victor? Are we talking Victor from Corpse Bride? Because if we're talking Victor from Corpse Bride, then I think that's like a compliment, honestly. If you're saying Victor plus a trans lady, like I'm trans Victor, I'm okay with that. That's cool. I don't think I'm nearly that cool, though, honestly. Cancer speedrun. Only one of these is a known carcinogen. Well, actually, okay, I guess technically all smoke is a known carcinogen, but tobacco massively increases the morbidity, would you say? No, that's not the right word. The incidence, maybe? Point is, tobacco makes it even more dangerous. Like, smoke is not a great thing to be inhaling at the best of times, but if you add nicotine to it, it makes it even worse. Whereas THC and CBD actually seem to, preliminary studies, but they seem to have some cancer-reducing effects, some cancer-mitigating effects. So, I feel like you're probably offsetting. I feel like a person could probably... I feel like the incidence of lung cancer from people who purely smoke weed has got to be way, 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 way low. I'm really curious about this, though, and I don't see any studies being done on it, but I would love to see, because, like, there have been studies since, like, the 60s about tobacco smokers and how like, you're way more likely to get cancer if you smoke tobacco, lung cancer especially, but it also opens you up to esophageal cancer, throat cancer, just generally, mouth cancer, you know, like, it's not a great thing, right? Not a fucking great habit to have, but I'm really curious as to what the statistics would be like if you looked at cannabis users in particular. By the way, if somebody wants to make sure that your question gets read or your comment gets read, consider sending a super chat. I read every single one of those. I always catch my super chats, even if I don't catch every single message being typed in the chat. This is an interactive stream. I do try to read things out of the chat, but there's a good chance I don't see your particular message unless you put it in a super chat. Do you support Clippy? I don't remember what that's all about, honestly. I don't... here's my opinion on these big social media campaigns. Social media campaigns, in my opinion, are not what changes things. Social media campaigns might help to get some kind of movement going, but that's what it has to be predicated upon. You have to start the movement from the idea of this is eventually going to coalesce into us marching on something, because that's what makes that's what makes people and corporations actually bend to the will of the people. It's not getting online and posting a particular photo as your profile pic. It's not getting online and having a argument about something. It's literally getting out there on the street with signs and refusing to leave until something changes. That's what changes things. That's why the protest movements of the last 10 years have been unsuccessful. The only one that has been successful in the last 20 years has been the Black Lives Matter movement. And the reason why BLM is successful when they are successful is because they stay. They stick it out. They stick around. The BLM protests in 2020, some of them lasted for months of constant protest. Constant. Not necessarily constant all the time, everybody's out at all times. I mean, it was that for a while in some cities. Like, it was a fucking war zone in a few cities. And that was, by the way, entirely the fault of Trump's National Guard and shit like that, but we can leave that aside. You look at these movements that have been successful over the last 20 years, and it's movements that have decided to stick around and stick it out. That's what changes things. Whatever movement this represents, I might or might not support it. I don't remember what it's associated with. If I support it enough, I'm eventually going to want to be on the streets about it. And what saddens me so much about this country is I have wanted to be on the streets for something for so long, but the only place these protests happen anymore is big cities. That's not how it used to be. That ain't how it used to be. Small towns, I'm talking 50,000 and below, used to have protest environments too. Yet another thing the authoritarian atmosphere of America has stripped from people. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button. If half of you guys hit that like button right now, we would be sitting at 113 likes, and YouTube would throw this everywhere. So come on, hit it. Even if you hate me, you should be hitting the like button to tell more people to get in here to argue with me. And even if you like me, well, I mean, if you like me, you should just hit the like button, frankly. And one last plug, if you want to make sure your question gets read, send a super chat. It's the best way to do it. Damn it. Yes, protest everything and understand nothing about what you protest said. What? Okay, let's turn on the idiot filter and see if anything makes more sense. Let's turn on the idiot filter and see if I can find a single question worth reading. There we go. Yay, okay. No time limit, sub mode, and 15-second slow mode should make this chat nice and readable. Yeah, tonight's a good night for a post, for sure, for sure, for sure. Is that premium Zaza or mid? This is definitely some mids. But it does taste nice, I'll give it that. Definitely some mids, though. If this was top shelf, dude, I'd be a lot less cogent. No, honestly, until I get sleepy, I'm usually pretty good with these, even though I get pretty fucking high. But, the higher quality weed is, the more likely I am to just kind of fall into a self-indulgent stupor with it. I don't think saying the N-word is super lovely. Did I? I mean, I might have said the soft R if somebody typed it out. But I don't know. Here's the thing. People like to act like there's one uniform opinion on this issue, but I'm just going to tell you guys, as a white person that lives in a place with a whole lot of black people, this is not an issue that has uniformity. Some folks think you should never say it at all if you're white, and some people think that it's okay as long as you're reading something. As long as you're clearly, not saying it with racist intent, you know? Like, if I'm to rap some Tupac, what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I supposed to say? If I'm like, I see no changes, wake up in the morning and I ask myself, is life worth living, trying to blast myself? Tired of being poor and even worse than black, my stomach hurts, so I'm looking for a purse to snatch. Cops give a damn about a Negro. What the fuck am I supposed to put there? Because the next line is, pull a trigger, kill a nigga, he's a hero. It doesn't line. It does. The song only works if you use it, if you fucking sing it the way Tupac wrote it. You know? So I am of that opinion because it's the one that makes more logical sense to me. I think that, there has to be room in American culture and all cultures, really. But there has to be room in the discourse for nuance and intent. Anyone that listens to me for more than 5 minutes and asks me some questions about, racial liberation, black liberation, and, or racial solidarity and shit like that, anybody that asks me questions about those topics is going to find out pretty quickly that I'm a fucking anti-racist, that I'm ardently anti-white nationalist, that I'm ardently anti-Nazi, right? And I think that that should count for more than the fact that I don't think it's entirely inappropriate to read off the word nigga if you're using it in a completely fucking academic or otherwise innocuous context. If you disagree with that, that's fine. I understand. It's a contentious issue for sure. But I don't know why we need to pretend like there's some like unified, unitary, like single. I don't know. It seems like, honestly, it seems kind of racist to me to say that all black people think you should never do this. Like, wait, all black people think something? Huh? That doesn't make any sense. You know? Phoebe, what sorts of mammal are you? I always look like that. I drank a lot of sweet tea for a long time. I'm technically drinking one right now, but it's the only one I've had today, so I'm doing good. I've been drinking a lot more water lately. Dude, I'll just tell you guys, there's this dude named fucking Pimp Monk X, King Beard X. He died the other day. I found out he's not just me and him are from the same state, grew up in the same state and everything else. We're from the same fucking region. So it's just wild. I found out he died the other day. Dude had been in terrible health for a long time. He was one of those folks that, like I could be when I'm his age. And so I just keep thinking about it. And maybe this is a horrible thing to do. Obviously, rest in peace, Pimp Monk. Rest in peace, John. I hope that I hope that his family is okay. But it really was a wake-up call to me, like, smoking is going to be the hardest thing, but these eating habits, I can do this shit. There's no reason. And to my credit, I've been doing it. I have had, like I said, the one sweet tea I've had today, which I'm drinking right now to kind of give myself a little bit of extra sugar rush energy for this shit. And the rest of my day has been water. And I'm really fucking proud of myself for that. Like, tremendously proud of myself for that. That has been a long, long, long time needed in my life. Real shit, I want to know, do you play any games? I play a little bit of Battlefield 4, haven't been playing a lot lately. I no-lifed Ark Survival Evolved for a while, that's a really fun game, but goddamn does it want so much of your time. It literally begs for your time. It wants you to spend all day long playing nothing but Ark Survival Evolved. Let's see, I like the Zelda games a whole lot. I haven't had a Nintendo console in a long time, so I haven't been able to play them in a long time, but I do like them a whole lot. That was my home base of gaming, that and the Monster Hunter series. Monster Hunter World, I have that one, and it's super fucking fun, but I've played all the Monster Hunters since 3. Christian said, Smash, next question? Wait, what now? Right on. Okay, cool. I think you're flirting with me, in which case, thanks. Israel is a terrorist state, a wacko terrorist state full of wacko people, yeah. Yeah, free Palestine, for sure. For sure. From the river to the sea and all that jazz, you know? What are your pronouns? She, her, hers. Not a real woman. Will never be a real woman. You merely saying that doesn't actually make it true. You sad, misinformed summer child. Why is this person wearing a bra? It's not actually a bra. It's actually like a crop top, basically. I made it. Let's see. You'll never be a skinny woman? Probably not. Yeah, probably not. Is that a hair transplant? What? No. This is my fucking birth hair or whatever. Like, okay, is there something about my hair that makes it look transplanty? I don't know. I'm not familiar with hair transplants, so somebody's going to have to fill me in on this one. Can you pull on it? Yeah? I'm gonna have to turn, like, I don't know what to do here. Dude, normally idiot mode takes care of most of them, but these idiots are just, like, willing to subscribe. We'll take it to 1 minute and see if anything becomes more readable. Failing that, we'll just implement a slow mode. Because whatever, if there's just a shit ton of subscribed people here, I'm happy for that. But I do need chat to be a little bit more manageable so I can just, like, read shit. Good boy, pull on it harder. Get banned, bitch! Fucking weirdo. Treat me like another human being. How about that? Hello, I'm Phoebe. This is an outbuilding that I stream in. It's in my backyard. I'm a real person with thoughts, feelings, goals, dreams, accomplishments, just like you. Just like you, I've got pets and a family and a life outside of our phones, okay? You will treat me like a person that you've met at a bus stop or sitting on the bench at Walmart. You will treat me like a person that you are interacting with in public, because that's essentially what you're doing. I'm inviting the broad public to come and hang out with me inside a part of my home, effectively. Not my home, my house, my home, but my home is in my land, my home. My family owns this land. It's not rented, it's not mortgaged. I'm asking you for a sign of good faith, and that sign of good faith is that you will transact with me like a real person. That means no weird untoward comments about my tits. That means no weird calling me a dude when you know for a fact that I'm a chick. That means no weird chaser shit. That means treating me with a little fucking macron of respect. Okay? And if we can do that, we can have a lovely fucking time in here. I really don't mind shit talk. I really don't mind people being rude. What I mind is people being so totally fucking out of pocket. What I mind is people acting in ways they would never, ever, ever bring themselves to act in a public environment. Ironic for you to be calling someone else weird? Why? I'm really not that weird. I'm trans. Does that make me all that weird? I mean, I guess, like, it makes me uncommon. Does that make someone weird? Like, what do you know about me other than that I'm trans and that I smoke weed and have a tobacco addiction? Like, what do you really know about me other than that? That's what you can see just, and I believe in squatters' rights. That's what you can tell just looking at me. So what do you possibly find so weird about me? Honestly, the weirdest thing about me is not the fact that I'm trans, not the fact that I smoke weed, or the fact that I vape. The weirdest thing about me is that symbol right there. But most of you morons probably don't even know what that means. This isn't very Catholic? Good. Honest question, why do you support Palestine? They don't like your kind. Like, they would throw you off a roof. Can you please explain this logic to me? Sure, Matt. I don't have to like a people as a culture in order to support their right to not be bombed, right? I didn't like it when we were invading Afghanistan, and that was literally a country that had ties to the country that had just, well, not the country, but the organization that had just crashed a bunch of fucking planes into various public buildings and, what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever, I can't think of it. I'm not a fan of people being bombed and war being made, regardless of who the people involved are. I think that there is a way, even in that situation I just referenced, the 9/11 situation, let's take it to its extreme. I think there would have been a way to coordinate with the Afghani government, the Saudi government, and all the governments in the Middle East. I think there would have been a way to throw around their fucking power. America's the biggest military power in the world. You can't tell me we couldn't have done this with just the threat. But we didn't want to do that. You know what we wanted to do? We wanted to try and hopefully secure mineral rights in Afghanistan. And we did our best. We took as much advantage of that country as we could while we were there. And then we left. What's a chaser? A person, usually cisgender, but not always, that is exclusively or primarily attracted to trans people, and feels the need to make that a little too obvious, right? So, in my opinion, if you're not making it super obvious, it's really none of my business if you prefer trans people as sexual or romantic partners over other kinds of people. But if you're making it super weird, then it kind of becomes a little uncomfortable because it feels like fetishization, you know? Just like I would imagine that, um, just like I imagine like a gay person wouldn't want to have sex with somebody merely because they're gay, right? And like imagine your average lesbian would probably not want to have sex with a bi-curious girl who's just going to fetishize the fuck out of the fact that she's a lesbian, you know? Maybe she would. And I think that it's those people's right to go at that if they want to, right? And that's why I said, like, I'm not against chaser. Like, I just don't want to have, like, weird, untoward conversations about my genitalia, my sex preference, or anything like that. Like, if that conversation isn't there, right? So, like, if somebody is, like, just randomly, like, completely out of nowhere asking a question about my dick or a question about my tits or something like that, it's really weird and gross and untoward unless the conversation has somehow gone to human sexuality. If it has, then that's one thing. Or if I bring it up or something like that, that's one thing, you know? But it's just like nobody asks other people about their genitalia or about the deeper details of their sex life unless they offer it up or unless they indicate in some way that they would be open to that. And if they do, in real life, you know what happens when someone really is like just has a burning question like that for you? They cannot stand to wait or Google. They will ask you if it's okay. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten this exact question. I'm sorry, I know this is going to be a weird question, but I gotta ask you because it's like burning on my mind, and I've never asked someone this before, but I'm curious, and I hope you don't think I'm being hateful. That has been the premise to probably like 20 fucking questions since I've came out as trans from curious people who wanted to know more. And you know what? I answered every one of them because I knew they weren't trying to be impertinent. They were trying to understand from a person's genuine perspective. And if they were getting off of it, if they were getting off on it, they made it pretty fucking unobvious to me, you know? I couldn't tell that that was their intention. That's what I mean. That's the distinction between a curious person and a chaser, between someone who's merely attracted to trans people versus a chaser, right? Is the ability to keep it under your hat, to make it not so obvious that you fetishize this. Similar dynamics play out, by the way, on the opposite end, but that's a whole other conversation. Why are you uncomfortable with your body? Who says I am? I mean, I'm comfortable with aspects of my body for sure. The fact that some aspects of my body are way more male than I would like, you know, bothers me. But as far as like my fatness, I feel like that's what people usually land on as far as like what I should be ashamed of. I'm really not, you know. Now I am trying to lose weight, and I have been kind of over the last year trying to, you know, slowly but surely introduce better habits into my life, and I've been getting really serious about it over the last 3 days. Excuse me. But it's not because I'm ashamed of my weight. It's not because I think like there's some kind of shame that comes from being fat or some kind of badness about it. It's just like, you know, well, frankly, there's somebody that was a fan in the same community of fans that I was a part of for a podcast we all watched that died recently, and you know, a lot of his death can be probably tied back to the fact that he just didn't take very good care of his health, you know, which is something a lot of Americans aren't doing, honestly, but it's something that made me, it kind of like brought things to perspective for me a little bit, because it's like, man, I got a family and shit, and I'm only 27. Why fuck over, right? Because the person who died was 48 years old, dude. Why? Then that's at least 20 more years of good life. If you're fit by 48, man, you might live to fucking 85 and still be reasonably mobile and shit. By the way, make sure you guys are hitting that like button. I haven't mentioned it in a while, but it really does help the channel. Every single time you hit that like button is another chance to send the stream out to even more people, which increases the quality of your viewing pleasure by increasing the amount of people who can engage in the chat. Speaking of which, I'm going to modify things just a little bit. I'm going to do any duration sub mode, but I'm going to increase the time limit timer, the slow mode timer. I'm I'm going to increase that to 30 seconds. Yeah, there we go. There we go. We're going to try this because I want people to fucking participate. I want people to argue with me. I want people to have interesting conversations in here. What I don't want to do is sift through morons. So if I can convince any of those to just sit back and listen for a minute until they can think of something intelligent to say, that's great. And if I can prevent the people who just can't resist from being able to type with their monkey paw and slam enter every 5 seconds, that's great too. Satan is daddy, but I digress. Always with the zingers post. I don't get it. It says they turned off sub mode only, but I don't know. Now I'm not so sure. Now I'm legitimately not 100% sure. Let me see here. Oh, yeah, I fucked it up. I fucked it up. I don't know why I fucked it up, but I fucked it up. I don't know how. I literally do not know how I managed to fuck that up. I accept that trans people exist and I support their choices, but don't you agree that sometimes things get taken too far in this movement? In what way, Mark? I mean, maybe I'd agree, but you'd have to give me some specifics. Like, I don't know what exactly you're referring to. And also, you have to understand, a movement is an agglomeration of a bunch of different people's opinions. And so my opinion might differ pretty substantially from whatever you've perceived as the overall opinion from the group, you know what I mean? But like, if you give me a specific issue, I can answer more specifically, but overall, I would say probably not, you know? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that people get... There's a lot of stuff that get people get outraged over, but then when I look into it, it's not actually outrage-inducing, and I feel like that happens way more than people take account for. Being fair, every movement has people that are too extreme or of issue. Well, yeah, I mean, every movement does, but what would that look like for a trans person? I really don't know. And would that represent any kind of, like, does the extreme of any movement represent that movement as a whole? I don't think so, not personally. Not unless that movement is itself an extremist movement. And I don't consider the trans movement, if you can call it that. I would call it like the what is it actually called? Because I'm thinking of a few different names and phrases that have been used over the years since I've been like politically aware. I guess you could call the movement for queer liberation in general, you know? Fuck, I forgot the point. Anyway. Can I sing Little Baby Pure Cocaine? No. Keep preaching, Queen? I'll try. Should trans women be allowed in violent spaces? I mean, yeah. Like, why not? Why not? Are we going to start excluding women with MRKH from those spaces? Are we going to start excluding women from with PCOS from those places? Are we going to start excluding old women from those places? Because if not, then I don't think you should be excluding trans women. Like, I understand if a given movement or a space wants to implement like rules like sports teams do with trans athletes and shit. Like, the sports teams that do accept trans athletes require you to be on hormones and shit like that for 2 years, to be on the treatment path for longer than that. Like, there's all kinds of requirements you have to meet. There's like muscle density requirements you have to meet for athletics and shit like that. And I would be perfectly fine with there being some kind of like verisimilitude for trans women that want to join women's spaces, right? Like, I understand, but that I think would just be like the sort of verisimilitude that would come from any kind of group that wants to join, any kind of group that wants to allow people from the public to join it. You know, like, there's going to have to be some vetting involved. And if you're talking about some kind of like a women's knitting circle, honestly, I think that for most of these groups, I think it should be up to that group. Like, if a knitting circle wants to take in a trans lady as a member, like, who are you to tell them that they can't have that, you know? Like, why can't trans women be allowed in women's spaces? Why do women need us to stand up for them? Like, in this particular way. Do we not trust women to stand up for ourselves? Like, I trust women to stand up for ourselves. I don't know. Like, cis, trans, I think either way, we're probably going to make sure that our spaces are safe. I feel like this idea is so paternalistic. And people said we were crazy for saying there's a fucking patriarchy, bro. People said we were crazy for saying there's a patriarchy, but now people are running around with like totally paternalistic ideas, like trans women shouldn't be allowed to enter women's spaces because like women are just like, you know, diminutive weeping roses that can't protect themselves. You know, like what the fuck, huh? Do you go to a therapist? I have a few times for different things. I mean, I have. I've had like extensive talks with therapists before. I haven't like in the last couple of years, but I haven't really felt like I needed to that much. I mean, I guess when I was at the ass end of living on the road and just living in my minivan and shit like that, then yeah, I was feeling pretty fucking bad. But last year or two, not really. Haven't really felt like some crushing need to go seek mental health help. It's not a new label. It's literally a Latin term that's been in use for fucking centuries. You can get mad about it, but you're just getting mad at the English language. I'm sorry. Argue with God. You'll have just as much luck. You saying no doesn't make it so. That's something my mom taught me so long ago that it is just stuck. But some of you guys don't seem to get that. You think that you saying no is an argument. It's not. It's not. Number one, I have way too much fucking ego and way too much fucking pride to allow myself to be swayed by something as simple as a yes, no, maybe, or any other kind of snarky little one-word answer. But number two, it's just such a basic thing. Just because you say no doesn't make it so. Merely because you disagree with a fact does not make that fact any less a fact. And it is a fact that transgenderism is a recognized fucking treatment for the mental condition that is gender dysphoria. Source, the Mayo Clinic. So once again, argue with God. How long would it take you to complete a mile run? A long ass time, because I'm a fat ass bitch and I got bad ankles. So a long time. That would be one fucking Cookie Monster pajama. That would be one Cookie Monster pajama pants fucking walked, barely fucking trudged mile. Motherfucker would take me half an hour. No, I don't know. I guess if I actually if I was not in a bad pain day, because there are fucking days when I wake up and usually it'll last for like a week before I end up tripping over something and fucking it all up again. But there's every so often I'll wake up and I'll not be in any kind of joint pain and shit like that, and I feel pretty good. And on days like that, I could probably run a mile in like, I don't know, 5 minutes if I had to, maybe. Is that like unusual? I don't know. I don't remember. Like, it's been so long since I've been in PE that I don't remember what the fucking average statistic is or whatever. But quick question: do you need a forklift to move you to one place or another? No, nowhere near that fat. I respect you, but I really don't understand trans people in the sense of what does it feel like being trans? Did you know from a young age you were trans? Yes, Mark, and that's actually a completely normal reaction. I don't blame you a bit. I have a completely hard time understanding cis people. You know, I mean, I understand it logically, but I can't relate to the experience, and so we're kind of in the same boat. We have to work to sympathize for each other, even if we can't exactly empathize, right? We can't empathize with each other's situations because we're not in each other's situations, and we can't place ourselves in each other's situations. But what we can do is sympathize, and we can imagine what it might be like, right? And so for me, like, being trans means that I feel pretty uncomfortable on the whole with the fact that I was born in a male body, you know? I would do anything to wake up one day, like in a completely overhauled body, right? That was completely femme, completely female in every way. But since I can't wave the magic wand that does that, my next best option is to live as the gender identity that I correlate with most strongly, which is a woman. It's a complicated thing, I think, to explain sometimes, but I really don't think it's that complicated a process. It's like, I feel uncomfortable when I try to dress in men's clothing. I feel uncomfortable when I try to fit in with men. I feel like they feel very alien to me in the same way I always heard, like I didn't come out as trans until I was 21, so I was always hanging out with, like, boys when I was a little kid, right? Because, like, everybody gets gender segregated when you're a little kid. And, you know, I always heard, and even when I was a teenager and my friend group remained male for a while, I started to get way more female friends, like, as I got into my, like, by the time I was 18, almost my entire circle was femme at that point of some kind. But when I was like 14, 15, right, teenage years, I used to hear boys talk about girls like they're just like completely mysterious and they don't understand them at all and they can't really. And I always felt so alienated by that because I was like, man, you guys are the ones I really don't understand. You know, I felt the same way they did about girls that, you know, I felt the same way about them that they did about girls. So, like, stuff like that is a way that I can help to kind of illustrate what it might be like to live as someone who's trans, but ultimately you can't get a complete and full understanding, and that's okay, right? I'm never going to understand what it's like to live in Palestine. That doesn't mean I can't advocate for their rights. I'm never going to understand what it's like to be black, but that doesn't mean I can't advocate for black liberation, you know? I'm never going to understand what it's like to be, you know, I'm probably never going to understand what it's like to be disabled in a wheelchair, but that doesn't mean I can't advocate for accessibility, you know? So because you didn't fit in, you didn't want to be male, or am I understanding wrong? I mean, I think I get what you're, I think you might get what I'm getting at, maybe. So what I'm saying is not that I, like, it's not like the reaction that I was having is what made me feel trans. I feel like it's the other way around. I feel like being trans is what led me to feel the ways that I felt that I've described, right? At least that's what the psychological science says about it. Because for me, it was such a constant thing. It started when I was a really young kid, and I always wanted to be hanging out with my little sister and her friends, but I always ended up getting kind of pushed to hang out with my cousins, right? Who were, they were boys, right? So it started out with really little, like, basic shit like that. One year, I was like 7 years old. I wanted to wear my mom's Halloween dress from the year before that for Halloween that year, and my mom was all about it. She was perfectly fine. She was like, clothes have no gender, you know, crazy hippie lady, love her. Hopefully have her on the channel again soon. She was on the channel a ways back on a members only stream. Hopefully gonna have her again soon. But she was okay with it. My dad was 100% not. And I always look back at that as like one of the first times that I ever clearly showed like a tendency towards, I guess, like, transgenderism. I always feel like that's an outdated term when I say it, but whatever. I feel like that was the first time I ever demonstrated a capacity for gender nonconformity, and the fact that it was instantly rebutted, I think, set me up for, you know, not coming out until I was 21. Make sure you guys hit that like button. And by the way, if you want to make sure that your question gets read or your comment gets answered, consider sending a super chat. It's the best way that you can support this channel directly, and it's the best way to ensure that your question gets read, that you become part of the dialogue, just like my voice is. I would like to have a longer trans conversation with you, Phoebe, but I feel like it would require a little one-on-one in the chat. Could we talk about it when the chat slows down a bit, if that's okay? Yeah, when the chat slows down a bit, we can. Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, I'm glad that it stayed going this long, but honestly, Matt Blank, I would be down to have you on for a call-in stream one of these days if you want to. I don't know if you'd be comfortable with that, but if you would be, I would be totally down to have you on stream to talk about it. Phoebe, can you do a 360? I guess I can fucking... Oh, my hurting ass feet. Okay. Whee! I don't think this is a very worthwhile 360 because I'm just like, you know, you can't really see me. But whatever. Anytime real argument comes along, boom, blocked, deleted. That's how all the left is. No, not really. We just don't have room for shit talkers or people that want to be weird. If you can be like a normal person and ask questions in here, I really don't care how much you disagree with me or how much shit you talk. $8 miles is average for mile run for average high school student. Okay, so I could probably do it in like 15 minutes. If you woke me up on a no pain day and I felt good and I had some coffee in me and shit, I could probably do it in like 15 minutes maybe. But I think it would just depend, honestly. Like, I am so fucking prone to joint pain at this point in my life that I honestly, dude, it sucks, and I hate to admit it, but I kind of have to treat myself a little bit like an old person anymore. I have to be careful where I step and careful where I walk, and I kind of have to walk slow and shit, because even if I'm not feeling a lot of pain that day, if I'm just stupid about the way I move or the way I, like I can't jump off of shit anymore, because if I do, I just know there's a good chance I'm gonna fucking hurt my fucking ankles, I can't. I try not to stomp or anything like that ever, because there's a good chance I can hurt myself doing that. It just fucking blows, I've lost so much mobility already, and I'm only 27, and that's like, despite the fact that I'm not nearly as fat as some people that seem to retain complete mobility. You look at a motherfucker like Boogie2988, who has to weigh every bit of 450 pounds. That motherfucker can walk around just fine. That motherfucker doesn't seem like he struggles at all. Just waddles wherever he needs to go. And then you got my ass, who weighs like a solid 300, which is still fat, but I'm like 6 feet tall. So it's like, a 300 that is relatively manageable. If I lose 80 more pounds, I'll basically be within a reasonable weight. So I don't get it. I really don't know that it's fat related at all. Whatever. Can you play the guitar? I tell you what, if someone super chats $5 or more to hear some music, I will end this stream and start a new one where that's what we'll do. When's the last time both of your feet left the ground at the same time? Well, here's the thing. Even though I can't do like some of the shit that I'm describing, sometimes I still will. If I'm on a day when I'm not feeling like completely in pain and I'm feeling real capable or some shit, I'll occasionally do some of this shit. So not as long as you might think. I was probably when I was exploring the Hoosick Tunnel in North Adams, Massachusetts. Like, there's this little outbuilding nearby the West Portal that has some like ledges and shit, and I believe I jumped down into that. So. How much do I have to super chat for 10 push-ups? Me doing guys is not on the super chat fucking funding list. Me playing the guitar? That is. You getting your comment read? That is. You getting your question answered? That is too. Me doing push-ups and weird physical stunts? Nah. No, I'll retain some of my dignity, thanks. That's all the same to you. If you give me a countdown, I'll donate $20. A countdown? T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There you go. I think we're past dignity. You might be. Me, on the other hand, nah. Well-founded or no, I've got plenty of it to go around. Someone asked, why can't you just identify as black? And I was genuinely curious about that. What's so different about sex and skin color in terms of identifying as something different? Well, that's the thing. When a trans person comes out as trans, we're not saying that we're literally changing our sex in that moment, right? Gender is a different thing than sex, and right, that's why you can't identify as black just because you relate to black people or you grew up in a predominantly black area. It's a completely different dynamic, for one, and for two, sex and gender are not the same thing, right? Now, I am of the opinion that you can effectively change someone's sex through hormone replacement therapy and gender reassignment surgery and other gender reaffirming surgeries and things like that. I think that you can effectively change someone's sex at this point in medical progress, but that's not exactly what a trans person is doing or claiming to do whenever we come out as trans. Coming out as trans means merely that you identify with a gender other than the one you were assigned at birth on the basis of your sex, right? And gender is a complex system of behaviors and presumptions and things like that that we kind of predicate in our head on sex, but that you find out really has very little to do with it. It's a presentation thing. It's a behavioral thing. It's a belonging thing. It's a mindset thing. It's a mental makeup kind of thing, you know? Isn't sex based on our DNA, though? I mean, we didn't even know functionally about DNA until, what, like 80 years ago? So I would argue no. I mean, DNA is one component of sex, but even DNA is more complicated than people make it out to be. And DNA is not what we predicated our ideas of sex about for a long time. And I think the idea, right, like if you, let's say you have a trans woman who completely passes, like let's say you take somebody like Kim Petras, just go look up Kim Petras. If I hadn't told you Kim Petras was trans, you would never, ever, ever realize it unless you started gooning to her and looking her up and then found out that she had sex reassignment surgery way back when, you know? You take somebody like that person, how can you functionally say that person is a man? They have a vagina. She looks completely feminine. She's got giant titties. She's got super soft, hairless skin. And not like very light hair where she does, you know, like even if she doesn't shave, you know. Yeah, if you got her DNA sample, would you be able to tell that she is like was technically trans? Yeah. But how the fuck are you going to do that? Do you have like a DNA lab just chilling in your truck, you know? So that's why I say that sex meaningfully does, or I'm sorry, that's why I say that there's not a lot of meaningful connection in practical terms between sex and DNA. There is on a biological, scientific level, but on a cultural level, DNA is not what people use in their everyday lives to determine what sex someone is. Usually that's their fingers. Things get hot and heavy, and that's when they find out, for sure. We didn't know about penicillin until the last 100 years, though. The fact that we learned it recently doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Being female is a biological thing, though. If a moth looks like a snake, are they one? I mean, if a moth looks like a snake, can do all the things a snake can do except, like, one, you know? At what point do you call that moth more similar to a snake than to a moth, you know? Not only that, but I feel like you're comparing two things that don't even deserve the comparison, right? A moth and a snake are two completely different species, two completely different animals, two completely different families of animals, you know? About as evolutionarily close to each other as we are to clams, you know? So what is the basis of comparison? How does it matter? How does it not? I'm saying it matters. You have the burden of proof to prove that it doesn't. Do you take hormones? Not currently. I wish I could, but I don't have health insurance. I mean, if monkeys wanted to transition to humans and be gay, like, if we had the technology to allow them to do that, or if they at some point spontaneously evolved communication, would you, like, departing from the trans thing a little, would you allow monkeys into human society if one day there emerged a population of apes that had learned human language? Like, let's say somewhere in Indonesia, there's some population of orangutans that, due to habitat loss, decides to move into a human village. And the villagers decide to actually help them build homes and take them into their homes, some of them maybe. And and over like 200 years, right, it's a phenomenon, and National Geographic covers it, but then everybody kind of forgets about it, right? And over 200 years, or 300 years, or maybe 1,000 years, right, some of these orangutans start to be born with the ability to make some human-like noises. And let's say over 10,000 years, like, let's just say our society hangs on that long. At what point would we start to accept this as part of that Indonesian village? Not merely a separate animal population being kept as pets, but in fact part of the effectively human population. I already gave you a countdown. It was earlier. You can go back up. Yeah, I understand, Greg. You don't understand, but that's the thing. You can't understand because you're not trans, right? But I don't think it's a far fucking leap to ask people to try and understand. Like, I don't know. You can't convince everybody. Doesn't that demolish all the efforts of equality and the idea that men and women are mostly the same? No. No, because you can recognize that men and women are capable of doing most of the same things, if not all the same things. And that was always the point of the feminism movement. Not that men and women are exactly the same creatures in every fucking way. I don't know where this idea got started, right? I don't know where the anti-SJW movement got the idea that SJWs were trying to make the argument that men and women are exactly the same in every way, inseparable. No, that was never the point. The point was, you shouldn't exclude a woman from a job on the basis of, well, women aren't suited to that job for this and this sexist reason. You shouldn't exclude a man from a job on the basis of, well, men aren't suited to this job for this and this sexist reason, right? That was always the whole point, was that we need equality in terms of opportunities. We need equality in terms of civil rights. That's the fucking area in which there was equality, right? Or that's the area in which there needed to be equality, in which there was an inequity. A lot of those inequities, by the way, have been addressed. Some of them have not, some of them have, but there was never, ever, ever, and as far as I know, a serious debate about the existence of gender norms. Like, that's just absurd. Of course gender norms exist. Like what would even be the point of being, like, how, like, there could be no mechanism to be trans if there was no distinctions between the genders, right? Like, how would you be trans if gender means nothing? If men have the same exact societal expectations on them that women do, like, why would anyone be trans? Like, the pressure that causes someone like me to flee effectively from our gender assigned at birth would not exist in a gender abolitionist society. People would just dress however they want and be whoever they want. I have a question. My biological sister said to me today that she wants to come out as trans, but doesn't really know how or what to do. Any advice for how I can help her? Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it depends, right? Like, people ask me for advice, but then there's so many fucking things that go into this, right? Like what's her age? You know, like, is she like a teenager? Because if so, coming out as a teenager is always a fucking difficult thing. Um, you know, it's something I advocate for people to come out when they're ready to come out, but I also advocate for people to be safe about it, which means sometimes you can't come out even when you know. Even when you know you're trans, even when you know you're gay or you're bi or you're a lesbian, sometimes you just can't come out because of the environment you're living in. So you have to be very cognizant of that kind of thing when you're handing out advice like this. I would like to know more details about that before we proceed. But I don't mind giving advice, certainly. Especially in this, because it might be the one thing in which I have any meaningful or relevant expertise. We will all be evil snails, but only to snail haters. I agree. I understand the struggle of the War Thunder era, but this shouldn't be how us bears should be seen as scary. I have been identified as a bear for a while. Wait, what's going on? I understand the struggle of the War Thunder era, but this shouldn't be how us bears should be seen as scary. What is going on, dude? What the fuck? What am I reading? What the fuck am I reading in my chat, y'all? She's a teenager in a very red state with two relatively supportive parents. Well, if she's got supportive parents, honestly, then her coming out as queer is probably going to make that support even, like, go up even from there. So I would tell her, like, you want to be careful about it. I would definitely tell her, like, make sure you really vet their reaction first, you know? Like, try having a joking conversation with them, or a serious conversation, but joking can be the way to do it if your parents are already kind of supportive. Just, you know, like, bring up, especially if her parents are the kind that like to dunk on conservative types or whatever, or that like to watch other people dunk on conservative types, you can always just, like, bring up a TikTok video or a YouTube Shorts video of some queer person dunking on a conservative celebrity or whatever, and start a conversation about queer people from that, and then be like, what would you guys think if I was trans? You know, pop a question like that, and then, you know, they've got their reaction, you know. And honestly, doing something like that, or even having a serious conversation where you're like, I need to know how you guys feel about some stuff, because, you know, with the politics of the country being what they are, I just want to make sure that I have the right idea about you guys, you know. And it's okay if I don't, like, I understand if you guys feel differently or whatever, right? But you don't necessarily have to come out the first time you talk about it and say, hey, mom and dad, I'm gay. You know, you can you can vet their reaction and try and see what exactly is going to come out of them beforehand. And the great thing about it is if they have a positive reaction, it almost kind of holds them to that standard when you do. Because it's like that internal kind of self, like, I don't know how to put it, but you're like, human beings have like an innate sense of justice that we kind of, I think most of us that have functioning brains and consciences try to uphold, where, like, it's like the bullshit alarm, right? And someone can definitely set off their own bullshit alarm. And you can help to do by gauging their response before you directly come out. What would you think if I was trans? I mean, not necessarily. I could see, but maybe I'm just a wordsmith, dude. I can definitely see a conversation where you could ask in a serious manner, like, okay, what would you think if I was trans, for example? You know, but at the same time, I've been out as trans for so fucking long now. I've been like a queer advocate for a long time now, even before I was out as trans. And so for me, conversations like this probably come a lot easier than they do for a baby queer that hasn't actually talked to their parents about it yet, right? Both of my parents know that I'm trans and queer as fuck. Most of my family knows. I don't care if the rest do or don't, you know. Anyone who sees me is free to read me as queer and trans and be correct about that, and I'm perfectly comfortable talking with them about that. And I think sometimes I make the mistake of assuming other people might be as well. But yeah, maybe a laughing manner is the best way to approach it, you know. I think people that aren't supportive might be suspicious with that kind of question, but I really don't know that suspicion would be so instantaneous in a person who is already kind of supportive of queer people. Have you seen the most recent Clark County elections? Orange Bear, a great member of the Cape Coral Island in the state of Mayflower, won the elections fair and right. What are you fucking going on about? It just sounds suspicious, not necessarily bad. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I kind of agree. I just, I don't know. I don't want to dash anybody's hopes, but just recognize that there are ways to approach this where you'll come out looking okay, and so will they. Send Phoebe your own personalized message from Jesus by sending a super chat and making sure it's read out loud. 100%, Desi. Thank you. Yeah. If you want to praise the Lord openly and freely and have me sing his praises with you, just type it out in super chat. I read every single one. And if I notice that it's something biblical, I'll even read it in a cool voice. I'll even dignify it with a dope voice. Can we fucking get rid of these people that keep talking about whatever bullshit? I'm not interested in this side conversation shit. I fucking hate these stupid characters that people play online rather than being themselves. It's okay. It's one thing if your actual personality is a fucking character. I'm that. I get the impression that Desi is. I get the impression that Post is that. I get the impression that Glitch is that. I get the impression that a bunch of people in here are that. But you know what? I don't get the impression that the 2 or 3 dorks that keep going on and on with their stupid side conversation role-playing bullshit. I really don't get the impression that they play these fucking stupid-ass characters out there in the wild. So can we get rid of them? Fuck me. If I have to touch the poop, I will. I just don't want them doing it in my chat, bro. I don't give a fuck what, because the reason they can't do it in my chat is because I read my chat for comments and reactions. I'm constantly scouting my chat for people like you that want to have an actual fucking argument with me, you know? And in order to be able to read comments like yours, I can't have the whole chat clogged up by people trying to use it as their own personal platform to fucking meme. I don't give a fuck about your stupid memes unless it's relevant to the channel and funny. I give a fuck about having interesting conversations. Okay, I'm just gonna get rid of these motherfuckers. I don't know what this Clark County shit is. It's got nothing to do with a motherfucking thing I've said in the last 20 minutes, but we're getting rid of it. Here, Desi. You don't have to do anything with this power, Desi, but you hang out in here so often it doesn't make sense for me to not give you the mod. So if you want to help clean things up in here, I mean, you've probably figured out by this point that we allow plenty of trolls in here, but we don't allow people trying to derail shit with their own little personal side conversations and shit. A couple exchanges, that's fine. Nobody is allowed to just take up the chat with their side conversation bullshit that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Other than that, our only rules here are readable, original, and interesting. And, you know, you've been here long enough. I trust that you can exercise the powers with grace and all that. But, yeah, like I said, you don't have to do anything with it, but I want to make sure that I notice your chats when I see them because you always chat things that I appreciate seeing, you know? So, there you go. You've got the power. Fucking talk to me, not to my mods, you fucking idiots. That's funny. Post wants to be the only gay man on the mod staff. Phoebe, you're probably the realest trans person I've spoken to. You just seem down to earth. I don't know if that's like a compliment to me or an insult to other trans people, you know, but I'll take it. I appreciate it. But you have to understand the place that so many trans people are coming from. I really feel like outside of their own communities, a lot of trans people right now are just fed up and sick to death of the narrative they keep seeing online. But you know what? Like, this is a complex topic, and if you guys want to get into it, we can, because it's really interesting, right? There is an effect. I don't know if it's been named by anybody, by some sociologist or somebody that studies this shit, but there's an effect that happens when somebody isn't cognizant about the kinds of things they allow their feed to be. Okay? What I mean by this is that if you allow yourself to go down a rabbit hole, everything on the internet, no matter what platform you're using, but Android devices, it's particularly, like Android devices and PCs, it's particularly bad. But no matter what you're doing, the internet now is designed so that if you do something like that, like if you go down a rabbit hole on one service on your account, you're going to start to see that pop up everywhere else. And if you keep going down that rabbit hole, your phone will show you more and 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 more. To the point where eventually you get to the point where your feed is nothing but doom scrolling about how horrible being trans in America is, how awful an experience it is, how much transphobia there is, when in reality, what you're seeing is a curated feed of every single incident of transphobia in America that happens, because almost all of it's recorded. We're talking the vast majority of these. You're seeing them, all of them. And so that makes trans people, I think, that just like it has affected a bunch of other different groups, I think it has affected trans people in a predictable way, which has made us fearful and way more kind of intolerant, I think, of questions asked about our gender identity. When in reality, the sad thing about the sad thing about it, right, is that trans people are never going to make any meaningful success or have any. We're never going to have any success at getting people to understand what we're going through or how we feel, unless we reach out to people or let them reach out to us and talk about the experience being trans, right? So it, like with so many other groups, has created this like horrible feedback loop. And the converse is also true. If you're someone who's anti-trans or really critical of trans people, and you allow yourself to keep going down that rabbit hole and you never challenge it ever, you never like spend any meaningful time reading pro-trans viewpoints or anything like that, your feed will eventually become, 25% anti-trans shit, where before it might have been 2%, For a trans person that's pro-trans, it's going to be like 99%, Not really, but the like social media effect has to be considered here when we're talking about how people interact with other people in regards to the difficult questions about their gender identity, because I just think a lot of people right now are prepped to look at questions like the questions you guys have been asking me as instantly hateful. When in reality, a lot of people really are just curious. They don't understand because they're not trans. And you can't expect them to understand. Why would they? They're not trans. You'll make me president of Serbia? Well, goddamn. Social media extremism. We should have been worried all around the world when Myanmar used Facebook to promote a genocide and it succeeded. Dude, I'm not even kidding. You're not even kidding. That's 100% true. I don't care what else you said. I don't care how much we argued earlier or whatever. On that, you're 100% right. The world should have been more worried. But you know what? You know what? The billionaire fucking interests who own and control the world, or at least the world's politicians and the world's governments, they had a fucking vested and moneyed interest in allowing that problem to continue. In fact, they had a moneyed and vested interest in continuing to let it get worse. To find new and unique ways to deprive people's attention from them, to make them easily led little robots, to make them easily programmed non-humans. Should trans athletes get to keep the medals they won? I think so, yeah. I think so. Why not? They competed. The fact that trans athletes lose all the time proves that they don't have some inherent edge over the sex that they're competing against or whatever, so it's just ridiculous. Phoebe, I'm not the most familiar with transgender people and whatnot, but I'm glad you've been able to help me understand somewhat the difficulties and such you go through on a daily basis. Well, thank you. And honestly, I'll tell you guys, I don't go through a whole lot of, personal difficulty on a daily basis in regards to, transphobia and shit offline. I deal with a lot of it here, but I don't really deal with it that much when I go out in the world, when I'm just hanging out. If I'm at a bar, or if I'm at I haven't been at a bar in a long time. Plenty since I've come out, just not in the last year or two, So, whatever. But I can, hang out at a bar, a fucking grocery store, a gas station, it doesn't matter, right? I don't deal with a lot of transphobia just out in the world. Some, but mostly it's dirty looks and people not holding the door open or something as a dirty gesture or whatever. I don't know. Trying to be hateful. But, I never confront those people because whatever, I feel like it just dignifies their position, I confront the people on here because I hope, right? My hope is that somebody might derive a bit better understanding about trans people and what we go through and everything else, but yeah, when it comes to the struggles of dysphoria and things like that, that is a daily struggle, but it's something that I'm, I'm getting better at mitigating every day, and for that I'm thankful. What's your opinion on Canadians? Fucking Canucks. No, I don't know. Canadians are cool. Why wouldn't they be? Canadians are fine by me. I'm cool with a Canadian. I'm chill with them. Actually, I'll be honest with you, it's worse than that. Not only am I chill with you guys, I actually want you to invade this country. Please invade us. We long for the maple syrup and fucking poutine. We crave it, brother. We crave it, sister. We crave it, mother. We crave it, father. I've been called transphobic comments, and I'm a biological woman. It's disgusting that strangers treat others, the way strangers treat others, I should say. Why the hate? Does it really matter that much that someone is different from you? No, it doesn't. But to some people, that, the degree of difference for some people just causes I can only equate it to a kind of primitive reaction, right? So if you watch, chimpanzees, which are, I think, our second closest biological relatives. I think we're technically a little closer to bonobos, maybe, if I remember correctly, but I may be getting that wrong. But if you look at chimps, very close biological relative of ours, they are a fucking hoot to watch, but goddamn, do they get mad at each other sometimes. And sometimes out of nothing, from nothing. As far as you can tell, nothing has happened. One of them is just now beating the shit out of another one. That's chimp life for you. And the only thing that researchers have been able to pull out of those situations is that differences among chimpanzees, unexpected differences or things like that, are seized upon in chimpanzee society in a way not dissimilar to the way differences are sometimes seized upon in our society. And I think that it's a leftover from our shared ancestor. I think our shared ancestor probably had a better tolerance of change and variation and diversity than chimpanzees do, but a worse tolerance than humans tend to, because I really think the average person doesn't care. I think the average person is just this side of a hippie when it comes to social rights and shit like that. Like, most people, like, genuinely, on an everyday, person-to-person level, most people in this country are pro-trans, or some variation thereof. They're like pro-trans or pro-trans adjacent. They're like pro-trans, or they're like, you know, I'm not pro-trans, I guess, but I really can't stand the people that are hateful towards them, so, you know, I guess I don't care, right? And that's like another chunk of people in America. But people who are outright pro-trans make up like 61% of people. Now, admittedly, it does become more complicated once you start asking more detailed questions about exact opinions on procedures and ages and things like that. But just in general, do you support the right of an adult person to identify as a gender other than that which they were assigned at birth on the basis of their sex? Most people will answer, yes, I support that right. Something like 61%. So that means like 6 out of 10 people you meet are gonna be like, yeah, like, let trans people be trans, it's fine. Canada does not find they are objectively an economic nightmare for its regular citizens. Look at their GDP per capita right now, as well as prices and tax. Gosh, I mean, I don't know that much about Canada as it stands right this second, I'll be honest with you, but I will tell you as an American, I live in a 5-income household, and I'll be goddamned if we're not having... Get this shit, okay? Can I just be honest with you guys? I live in a 5-income household. I make money. My partner makes money. The 3 other people that I live with, you know, they all make money. All of us make money. Now, I make the least money out of all of us, you know. Well, no. I mean, I guess it depends. Like, this money, I'll make more money than... like, this month, I'll make more money than one of my housemates, but I won't make as much money as my partner, you know? And I won't make as much money as my mother-in-law. And, you know, so on and so forth. So I'll be like second, right, in terms of like income highest to lowest. I'll be like second from the bottom. But with all that being said, you know, you combine all of our incomes and, I mean, we should be fine. But I'll be goddamned if we don't fucking mightily struggle to pay our bills. So if we're struggling this much as a 5-fucking-income household on land we don't even fucking owe a payment on. This land is not mortgaged. This land is my land. It's really my land. It's technically my family's land, and it'll be my land when my parents pass away, but let's not talk about that, because hopefully that won't happen for lots of years, you know? No mortgage, no rent. But you know what? Food is fucking goddamn retarded expensive nowadays. And even with us raising stuff out of our garden, I mean, number one, this year was just like a kind of shitty year for gardening in our particular area. But number two, even on good years, we can only supplement, I would say, probably like $2 to $3 grand worth of our yearly food budget out of our garden sometimes. Like at the current state. I mean, if we got things going where I think we could get them eventually, like we could probably subsidize maybe 50% of our food budget yearly. But as of right now, it's just fucking absurd. And before you make the joke, no, it's not me eating up all the food. I actually, like, I eat once a day and I eat pretty reasonable portions. I might have like a snack or something earlier in the day, maybe a bowl of cereal or something like that. Or I'll have like a plate of breakfast if somebody makes it, but I ain't going all the way out of my fucking way to make breakfast, you know? The only substantial meal I eat during the day is dinner, and otherwise I just subsist off of snacks and whatever else. I figure I probably got enough fat. I'm probably fine, you know? But it's just like, if we're struggling that much between medical bills and food costs and energy costs, gas costs, one of us has a car note and like there's insurance that comes with that. I mean, honestly, at least if we were in Canada, the medical bills wouldn't be a part of our life. The medical bills wouldn't be a part of my, housemate's life. I run a business. Supporting the people around me has gotten so ridiculously expensive. Inflation is killing the other businesses in our area, and we've had to greatly change to keep up. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. No, for sure, yeah. No, I get it. It's fucking absurd. I don't know what they expect us to do. And the thing that gets me the most about it is that for the most part, people are still at each other's throats about it. We're not looking at the obvious fucking cause. Not none of us, but there's so few of us that want to look the cause directly in the eye. Be like, who's profiting off of all this shit? That's all you gotta ask, man. That's all you gotta ask. Like, who's profiting off of this shit? Is there somebody profiting off of the fact that prices keep getting higher while wages remain stagnant? Is there somebody profiting off of the fact that benefits keep getting cut and slashed and burned while prices continue to go up and corporations rake in record profits? Oh, wait, I think I just ran into it. I think I just ran into who's profiting. Corporate America. But if you call that out, you're a socialist these days. You call that out, you're a socialist these days. Unless you're Trump, unless you're somebody on the right. For some reason, the right is allowed to call out corporate America and not be labeled socialist. But you be left-wing at all, and you start calling out corporate America for the fucking hacks that they are, for the fucking reprobates that they are. Man, people get so sensitive about it. Really, you're not even allowed to be anti-corporate on the right, but you're definitely allowed to engage in more populist rhetoric on the right without scrutiny than you are on the left. I'm down with being a socialist. Me too, you know? I don't see what the problem with it is. Yeah, dog is just rage baiting. Left or right, everyone can agree that large corporations are evil. Well, God, I'm glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that, because that is one of those things that I just feel like if me and another person can't get along on that basic precept, we're going to argue all the time. It might be fun, but they're going to be a person I cannot spend that much time around, because I'm going to want to do nothing but argue with them and call them out for their bullshit. As long as we can agree, Big Corporal, I think we can argue about the other shit when it comes up and otherwise decide, you know? As long as you gender me correctly and use the name that I tell you, I really don't give a fuck. Is it time, Phoebe? Time for what, Matt? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess so, yeah. If you want to. Well, I don't support Israel. I don't know if that was towards me or somebody in the chat, but I do not support Israel. I mix between rage bait and genuine sadness I feel for the souls of this world. Yeah, I relate to that. So it sucks YT limits what I can say, so I hope you can just click on my chat history. Yeah, I'll try to read them and keep them in mind as they go through. What time is it for you? Probably like in the morning. 1:43. Captain Planet, he's our hero. Gonna take pollution down to zero. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, no. Nobody can mistake me for a pro-Israel person, for sure. Hey, in fact, you know what? In the spirit of being pro-Palestine, I'm gonna break British law real quick. You guys ready? I'm gonna break British law with my words. Me too, Desi. Me too. I have a friend that I really like and get along with, but his opinions on trans people suck. He's a military person, has done a lot of service. He's a very matter-of-fact type person. I think in this particular case, it's been going on for so long. It's such a persistent conflict. The war crimes being committed are being documented so widely. And because we have such a deep association with Israel, right? Yeah, there's been a genocide in Yemen for a long time going on now. Aided and abetted by the Saudi government. Why is it not being covered as much? Because it's not being covered as much. I mean, that's just, it's tautology. It's not in the news as much because it can't be in the news as much, because people who've tried to get it on to be on the news have died trying. And when it does hit the news, like, stays around for a while and then goes away, because our country does not have as many ties to the Saudi government as we do to the Israeli government. We basically prop up the Israeli government, and so a lot of people, myself included, see this less as a foreign country doing this to its own people, and America doing this to another indigenous population. I think there are a lot of people in America, at least, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but as far as Americans go, I know myself and some of the people I've talked to have referenced the fact that we did this exact same type of shit, just on a less grand scale, to the Native Americans. We displaced them from their homes and bombed them out and burned them out when they wouldn't leave. We forced them on a giant fucking trail to move to an area that they weren't familiar with, and tried to put them in the worst plots of land in the country, more or less. And now here America is yet again fucking over an indigenous population. But this time we're not getting, or at least we weren't getting, the heat for it for a lot of years. We weren't getting the heat for it for a lot of years, nor was Israel. Now, Israel and the U.S. are rightfully getting the heat that they deserve for the oppression of the Palestinians. It's sad that things are like this. I would love to live in a world where every genocide was covered equally, because they deserve to be covered equally. But at the same time, I'm not going to not talk about the ones that I do know about and can find ready information about, just surrounded by ready information about, merely because I know, well, it's also happening in other places, so what, it doesn't matter? No, the arguments and the pressure and the movement that builds around Israel, or around Palestine, rather, against Israel, that will lay the groundwork for... fuck, dude. I hate when I say that word because I instantly think of George Bush stumbling over it. Anyway, I think that would lay the groundwork for future resistance in other countries. Israelis control our politics no matter the side. You can live in that world, you have to act. I mean, I would say the Israeli government has deep fucking ties to our government, like through AIPAC, but through a bunch of other ones too, There's a deep fucking cooperation between the Israeli state and local police departments and things like that, between the Israeli state and local militias and shit. So, yeah, I mean, that's one of the scary things about this particular situation. Maybe that's another reason why it draws so much ire from people who are critical, is because the more you learn about Israel and its connections to the U.S., and the more you learn about Israel and its history, the less trustworthy it seems as a nation. And it's got nothing to do with, by the way, just so it's clear, it's got nothing to do with the fact that it's Jewish people, okay? Before anyone throws that accusation around, the Israeli state does not represent the Jewish people, no matter how many times Benjamin Netanyahu acts like it does. No matter how many times the state of Israel claims to do so, the state of Israel cannot, will not, and has never represented the entirety of the Jewish diaspora. The actions of the Israeli government are not the actions of the Jewish diaspora. Okay? With all that being said, okay, you look back into the history of Israel and all of its weird connections to the U.S., you look at our associations and shit from back then to present day, dude, we have a long fucking laundry list of shit that we don't really talk about when it comes to Israel, but that is, like, totally valid basis of fucking criticism. Like the fact that they have so much coordination with our local police departments and things like that when it comes to training and, well, training, I guess, would be the main thing. Recruiting, probably to some degree as well. Trump has been compromised. He had to sell out to get elected. Well, yeah, duh. But who the fuck thought otherwise, you know? Like, were there really that many people running around thinking Donald Trump was going to remain? I don't know. I tell you what, I was hoping that after that fucking year incident, the American people, a bunch of people pay way more than they have to just to export shit and import shit. There's a peace agreement between Israel and Russia, Israel and Russia. Ukraine and Russia hasn't panned out, though. Like, can you guys see me? Sound is out? Hold on. We back? I meant that I find it disgusting how many people are only supporting out of a trend rather than an actual care for what's happening. It's so vapid and empty. That's what I meant. Oh. Well, I mean, I don't know, dude. You need those people, though. That's my thing. You need people who are more or less morons who hop on your cause merely to help support something they think is cool, but that they don't really understand. You don't need, like, you can't, in my opinion, especially if you're talking about America, it's kind of unrealistic to expect everybody at the protest or everybody in the movement to actually know what the fuck is going on, right? Like, we've well established at this point, we're a pretty goddamn stupid country. You know, we're a country of morons. Like, you kind of have to have some allowance, in my opinion at least, for people who aren't fully clued in on all the arguments, for people who haven't been, you know, ingratiated into that discourse yet. He somehow thinks that all trans people are looking to do harm to women or children and that they're mentally ill. They're telling him that's like saying all men are rapists. I'm not, as I said, very educated, so I tried my best. What would you have said? Okay, let's see here. That's a long setup. Yeah. Okay. Man, that's a long setup. Okay. I have a friend that I really like and get along with, but his opinions on trans people suck. He is a military person, has done a lot of service. He's a very matter-of-fact type of person. Today, we were having a discussion about trans people, and he brought up that they have a mental illness and things like children having their genitals mutilated. I tried to tell him that I don't think they're doing trans surgeries on children, and that adults can make the decision if they want to. Why would it affect him? Then it came to how trans people have a mental illness. Then I tried telling him how transitioning is what people of the medical community have decided is the treatment. He then brought his toddler daughter into it and said if he saw a trans person going in after their kid, he would do harm to them. He somehow thinks that all trans people are looking to do harm to women or children and that they're mentally ill. I tried telling him that's like saying all men are rapists. I'm not, as I said, very educated, so I tried my best. What would you have said? Okay, so number one, Matt, I think you did pretty nobly, honestly, and you brought up some pretty good counterpoints, as evidenced by the fact that he had to keep pivoting, right? Because if someone really thinks you just brought up a bad counterpoint, if they don't feel roundly dismissed by your counterpoint, they'll just dig their heels in. But if they feel roundly dismissed enough, if they really don't have a reply to it that they just know is going to be bullshit, then they will pivot. So the fact that you induced like 3 different pivots, good job on that count. As far as what I would have said to the charge that trans women are somehow, as to the charge that trans women are somehow more likely to commit violence against women or children in a women's bathroom, I would tell them to just look at the statistics. I would ask him, do you know what the statistics are on trans people committing that kind of felony offense in public areas of accommodation? In public accommodations, do you know what that statistic is? They would probably say, oh, I bet it's like 50% or something like that. Maybe he'd be more reasonable and he'd say, oh, I bet it's like, probably like 40% or 30% of the people doing that kind of thing, I would bet. Wait till he hears what it actually is. So not only do trans people represent a tiny percentage of the population as a whole, but we represent an even smaller percentage of the people who get caught assaulting other people in places of public accommodation. It's just read them and leap. It's just the facts. Trans people are way more likely to be assaulted in a place of public accommodation than we are to commit assault in a place of public accommodation. That's just legal fact. Statistical fact. So in fact, we are the ones in danger, not the ones endangering others. It's just statistically born. It's just he's like statistically wrong. He's just factually wrong. I wouldn't ask him anything. I would go home. You gross, get it away from me. I know, Post. But see, you, I feel like, are different than me and Matt. I think me and Matt have Captain Save-A-Ho complex to some degree. I don't think Matt has it as bad as me. I mean, Post, you've been here long enough, and I don't know how you stand it. You must have appreciation for my mindset, even if you don't have it yourself. Because basically this channel is Captain Save-A-Ho complex to the max. It's, I can fix him, the channel, you know? It's me talking to people who wildly disagree with me, getting them to find me charming enough to agree with me on some things, and then getting them to realize, I guess trans people aren't as bad as I was making them out to be. Man, I was kind of being a dickhead. Brush your teeth? I do. They're stained from years of sweet tea. Do you think that trans people will ever be truly accepted by a society that finds them abnormal and a source of fear, since we always fear things which are new and different? Well, eventually we're not going to be new and different, right? Eventually trans people will be a mundane part of society. We were honestly on that trend in 2020. Part of me wonders if, you know what's ironic? If Trump had been reelected in 2020, we might actually be living in a more pro-trans world now. Ironically, as ironic as that sounds, we might be living in a more pro-trans world right now. In fact, we might be looking at a Democratic or an independent president actually trying to pass protections for trans people. Because if Trump had won in 2020, he would have continued his same policy trends that he'd had in 2016, most likely. And his policy trends in his first term were a whole lot less extremist than what he's been doing during this term. Not to say the first Trump term wasn't full of fucking, all kinds of bullshit from all sorts of different directions, like every presidency is, but this one has been definitely cranking the dial up, and I really think that only was able to happen because of the 4 years of like practical incompetence on the part of the Democrats. So, excuse me. I find your youthful optimism refreshing and endearing. Aww. Thank you. That makes me feel that made my night. Honestly, that really made my night. It's not that I can just be friends with people I very much disagree with. It's not that. I can just be friends with people I very much disagree with. We talk a lot of shit, lol. He agrees with a lot of my opinions, including treating the earth better, etc. But on this one thing, it's ugly, and I don't know how to get through to him. I would just say, like, have you ever tried Socratic dialogue, Matt? How much do you know about Socratic dialogue as a practice? Not just as a theory, but as a practice. 2016 to 2020 was so good for business, but being fair, we tend to see the effect of policy after the president leaves office. Yes! So I can't say whether or not it was Trump's good doing back then. I think I get what you're trying to say. I tend to agree. I think there are some effects you can see during a president's term, and I think sometimes you can fairly judge those as good or bad, right? Like, I knew it was fucked up when Biden was talking about wanting to address the military-industrial complex and all this shit, and wanting to be an anti-war president. Not in that exact language, but, you know, I thought it was pretty reprehensible when, like every other fucking politician, he went completely back on his, like, the vibe of his campaign and everything, and started signing billion-dollar deals with Raytheon and shit like that, started bombing kids in Syria. It was a bad run, you know? Pretty instant buyer's regret on my part, but that's the lesson you learn voting, I guess, you know? It is what it is. But I tend to agree with you. I think that most of the effects, like the cumulative effects of a presidency, really cannot be decided or fairly talked about until that presidency is done, right? Like, we can't say that Trump's second term yet is meaningfully worse than his first, except in one area, which is immigration. Because Trump is actually deporting people in higher numbers and with way less accountability than he was 2016 to 2020. So when it comes to immigration, the volume has definitely been cranked up. The heat has been cranked up. You know, like, there's tensions ratcheting there. When it comes to economics, that remains to be seen. Genuinely remains to be seen. Who the fuck knows? You cannot tell what a president's economic policy is going to lead to until the markets have had a few fucking years to work that shit out. Until there have been a few challenges to the system. Until there have been a few shocks to the system and shit like that. It takes a while to see how economic policy is actually going to shape out, you know? Even if you give a family, let's just say you give a family a UBI, right? You're going to have to check back on that family in like a year or two to see what that meant in their life. Because if you check back on them, if you check back up on them in 4 months, you might look at them and be like, well, how the fuck is this even improving your life? Because they've only bought a few little fucking things, improved this or that, the other thing, right? But you come back after a year and you start to see, oh, wow, they were able to get all this shit fixed on their house and upgrade some of their appliances. They were able to get their kids some really nice Christmas presents, which has kept them more entertained and has allowed them to feel more cohesive socially, or whatever you would say. It's allowed them to feel more sociable in school. They were able to start saving, or they were able to pay their car off or something like that, right? You have to give an economy time for it to really start showing the meaningful effects of a president's policy. Exactly. It's always fun for me to have conversations with people who don't agree with me. I'm a femboy who loves guns, medieval history, the UFC, the NBA. I love rap music and gang politics from rap. Nice. But I also like boys, and I don't think that makes me a worse person. I can have a conversation with people for weeks and weeks at work in person. I work overnight, so people never know I'm bi till I say, well, yeah. Yeah, because it's not like a defining aspect of someone's personality, usually, you know? I replied to you? Okay. Let me look. I don't know what that is. In my opinion, if we push all those people away who have those nasty opinions, you would never change anyone's mind, and then where we would be, yeah, that's kind of my thing too. I like having conversations about differing opinions, but not if the opinion is like people should drink water and sleep, because like no shit. Yeah, that's true. I replied to you. Okay. Yeah. So. I'm sure that that's not how the conversation goes. Post. I'm sure it's not literally like Matt's like, what do you think about the condition of the planet and the way we should treat it in the future? You know? It's probably like, damn, dude, did you hear about this fucking, did you hear about this new dam they're erecting? It's gonna, like, damage this and this habitat or whatever, you know? I'm sure it's relevant and topical. You can have an interesting conversation with someone you agree with, someone you disagree with. It just, like, interesting conversation is an art, and some people don't have it. But Post, you do. So you say you wouldn't know how to have a conversation about that kind of thing. I say bet. I'll get you into a conversation about that kind of thing. No, seriously, though. Yeah, in my opinion, if we push all these people away who have these nasty opinions, you would never change anyone's mind. That's my exact kind of take on it. You asked if I tried something or if I knew what it was. Oh, yeah, okay. I had asked you about Socratic method. My bad. Yeah, so Socratic method is it's a way of talking to people that is entirely predicated on questions. So it can be kind of hard to pull on somebody that you haven't established that with, right? Like if you don't both know the theory of Socratic method already, it can be kind of hard to spring that on. So it might be helpful to listen to some Socratic method being done. If you've ever read the book Ishmael that Paul has recommended, Ishmael is literally a book that's built on the Socratic method. But yeah, it's a method of coming to greater understanding through inquisition. So it's a way of getting someone to, like, you can kind of guide someone to a conclusion with Socratic method if you know what questions to ask. If you know what questions to ask, if you know what a reasonable person would have to answer, right? In fact, Socratic method is part of what is done in courtroom dramas and shit like that, and sometimes in trials too, sometimes during cross-examination. The idea being that you are asking questions that have, like, there's some utility in the answer progressing you to the next step. I hate how nuclear energy has been killed in the USA. Only 4 new plants have been built in the USA within the last few decades, and very few plants we do have count for 20%. And the very few plants we do have count for 20% of our overall power. Well, isn't that because the, like, nuclear plants that we do have, they're all near, like, big fucking city centers and shit? Well, not city centers, but they're near metropolitan areas and shit. Or they're feeding metro areas, even if they're not necessarily near them. But yeah, no, I'm weird on nuclear, dude. I don't want nuclear anywhere where a meltdown could cause, thousands of people to have to evacuate their homes. I also don't want nuclear anywhere where a natural disaster is decently likely to just take it right the fuck out. And that, in my mind, lends kind of some challenges to the problem of building nuclear power. But I'm open to the idea in a way that a lot of people aren't. I don't believe that nuclear power is an instant death sentence, but I do want us to be very cognizant about where we put it, how we build it, and what kind of dangers it's going to be expected to be exposed to. We were promised the atomic age, and this is what we got. Well, to be fair, the atomic age seemed a lot more promising when we didn't know as much about nuclear physics, when it was more just theorizing, when it was more theorizing and less theory, there's all kinds of shit we were promised, dude. Oh, man. There are people throwing around the idea that there might eventually be tiny little nuclear reactors that power electric cars. Yeah. I still think it's a kind of neat idea, honestly, but there's just no way to effectively have a system like that on a car. Too big. I don't like the risk of human errors when it comes to nuclear power. No, rope me into a conversation about wanting the planet to be okay. I'll try. Maybe I'll try. Maybe. Imagine that less than 100 planes provide 20% of the United States power. I know. I fully agree, Riley. Mr. Potato Head scares me the most with that shit. Mr. Potato Head? What? Yeah, no, I don't like the risk factors involved either, but I also think that with the increasing development of artificial intelligence and the advance of computer science and shit, I think that we're rapidly approaching an age where, or even, like, let's just take AI out of it. Fuck it. Look at Boston Dynamics and some of these other companies. Like, look at Atlas and some of these other robotics companies and shit. And these places that are developing robots that can effectively do anything a human being can do. We're not far away from being able to have a work staff. So basically what you'd have in my idealistic eco-future, like futuristic eco-utopian, like crazy computerized nuclear power generation center, here's how it would work. The people who work in that center would not actually go to that center ever. They would instead go to what would effectively be kind of like a call center, and they would hook up with a VR headset and everything, and they would take control of an autonomous drone just ran by them that can do everything that they can do, that can pick things up, and they are literally seeing, instead of it being virtual reality where it's creating everything around you and everything, it's literally showing you like that thing's view, and it's giving you all that field of vision and shit. And in fact, it's giving you more because it can take a complete 360 projection of everything around you without even moving its head. So it's going to be more precise, it's going to be less prone to injury, it's going to be less prone to mistakes and things like that, and I think a situation like that could allow you to ethically run a nuclear power facility in a way that would introduce the fewest amount of people to any type of danger. Wasn't there an accidental bomb warning sent out to Hawaii a few years ago? Yep, there sure was. My utopian dream is that AI takes over our governments and puts our universal basic income out, since all jobs are already handled, but like that would never happen. Oh, dude, it's happening. You say that would never happen as it's beginning to happen, my friend. Dude, they're getting rid of us. They're going to either have to kill us all off or give us a UBI, one way or the other, because they're getting rid of us actively. Everywhere you look. And you can't look at, like 20 years ago, it was just factory workers, 20 years ago, 40 years ago even, it was just factory workers. Automation was the big fucking boogeyman of the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, the 2010s, right? It was factory workers. We're all getting fucked over because all this automation, all these jobs getting shipped to Mexico. Those two things combined, there ain't hardly no industry in here anymore, And now, you can't look at a single fucking industry on the planet and show me an example of an industry that doesn't have AI or fucking advanced technology or robotics or something like that being involved in it. Customer service is rapidly getting replaced with AI models and kiosks and things like that, technological solutions effectively. Kitchen workers are being replaced in some places by more complex technology that can effectively do most of their job for them, requiring less people to run the kitchen. That's been an ongoing thing. McDonald's has been a pioneer of that, and they've been going at that pattern for years and years and years, So we're not far off. We're not far off. I'll tell you this much. There are already probably 200 million jobs in America that could go away within the next year if the billionaire class wanted them to. But they don't. As of right now, the reason why they're being so cautious about the rollout of all this technology, the reason why they're being so cautious about the rollout of automation is because they know once automation becomes like a standard and everybody's like expecting that and that's just how things are, people aren't going to have jobs anymore. Most people are not going to be able to find a job. There's going to be a shit ton of people that are just going to be facing utter destitution. And what do they do with them, right? If they try to threaten to genocide them or something like that, or if they start to try, they're liable to rise up and take all of their fucking ill-gotten gains from them, redistribute it amongst themselves. You don't want that. So what do you do? What do you do if you're a billionaire facing either the end of your way of life or a little bit of change to the way your income is distributed? So you have to pay a little bit more in taxes. The corporations you own and control have to pay a little bit more in taxes, and a UBI gets established so that everybody has a little bit of money they can spend on whatever they want to spend on, right, or whatever they have to spend on, so that the economy can keep on chugging along, despite the fact that nobody's being taken advantage of anymore in the form of that particular kind of work. I know, it's worrisome. It definitely is. Qualifications for basic management jobs are crazy these days, too. Jobs I used to qualify 15 years ago, qualify for 15 years ago with experience, I no longer qualify for. It's lame. No, I 100% agree. And it is insane. You know, it's like, I was thinking about it the other day. It's like, man, the job market, people have no idea. People think that, like, there are no jobs anymore or something. You'll hear that sometimes. And the truth of it is, no, there are plenty of jobs. They're just shit jobs. There are no good jobs anymore is probably what you're looking for. And the reason why there are no good jobs is because the good jobs are the ones without the turnover, obviously. But there's no expansion in those sectors either to allow for more people to get brought on. But even if there is, the people at the very bottom have been brought to such a bottom that they can no longer support themselves. So it's like, why not just pay everybody better? I don't know. Apparently I'm a socialist for thinking that we all deserve a little bit bigger of the piece of pie that we all help to make and bake. What if the strategy is just making us infertile like they're trying to do with stray dogs in India to avoid still slaughtering them? It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It would allow them to prolong our existence just long enough to get us to run things for just long enough for them to establish everything, and then slowly die off over the course of a few generations as the last few fertile plebs, you know? And maybe if there's a population of plebs that survives the defertilization campaign or the infertilization campaign or whatever, maybe they'll be accepted into the ranks of the rich, because at that point, you know, there's just so few of them. It seems like, at this point, it seems cruel to just let them die off or to punish them in some way. You know? I don't know. Shit's dystopian. That's all I know. Shit's dystopian. LNAs can make the same as someone being a team lead at a McDonald's. Oh man, that's sad. That's fucking sad. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get off here because it's pretty late for me already, and I feel like this has been a pretty good stream. We didn't hardly make anything in Super Chats today, which is, you know, regrettable, but it is what it is. My birthday is coming up. It's on August the 27th. If you want to get me something for my birthday, that would be super fucking sweet of you, and I have my Amazon wish list listed on my channel description. So yeah, with all that being said, I will see you guys some other time.